Hello, BookTube, and welcome to another edition of Book to Film. This week, well, let's get it correct, is Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin, published in 1967, and Roman Polanski's directed version of Rosemary's Baby, released in 1968, and it starred Mia Farrow, John Cassavetes, Ruth Gordon, Sidney Blackmer, Maurice Evans, and Ralph Bellamy. Now, it's a short book, as I say, published in 1967. It is just over. It's about, well, in my version here, it's just over 225 pages, and it's a story about a young couple, Guy and Rosemary Woodhouse, in New York City. They're recently married. He's an actor, a struggling actor, up and coming actor. And they are looking for an apartment. And they've already agreed to take one because they're moving in together now. And another one comes up in a building called the Bramford. And that is a very prestigious building, and they would like to see it, but they've already taken the other one. But they go to see the apartment anyway, and Rosemary falls in love with it, and Guy calls the other landlord or agent, and gets out of the contract. So they move into this sort of gothic pile, and Rosemary has an old friend that's sort of almost a father figure to her that she met when she first came to New York, that lived across the hall from her and other girls that would share an apartment. His name is Hutch, and they go to have a meal with them, telling them about the new apartment, and he says, "Oh, he sort of tries to dissuade them from going to the Bramford because it has a seeded history. Two sisters, Victorian sisters, that killed and ate children. A lot of witchcraft going on there, and one person named Mercado that's apparently summoned the devil, and there was also other deaths and a baby that was found dead in the basement. But that doesn't dissuade the couple. They take the apartment, and it's a very luxurious apartment. They get some of the furniture that belonged to the lady that lived there before. The lady was elderly, and she had died in the hospital in a coma, never waking up. So they move in, and Rosemary is a bit, squeamish about going into the basement after the story that Hutch told them about the baby, because she didn't know where it was found, but she figures that she's walking by it, the spot, every day. She meets a young lady there named Terry, and Terry has she looks exactly like an Italian young actress called Anna Maria Alberghetti, which was a real actress that Ira Levin used. But she's not, obviously, but she looks like her. And they become sort of fast friends, and they make a pact that they will go down and do laundry together. Guy is out, trying every day, auditioning and working in commercials. He does TV stuff as well, theater. And Terry lives in the building, obviously, as well, but she's been taken in by an elderly couple called the Castevets. And she was sort of found on the street. She was a drug addict, alcoholic, and didn't have any food, and possibly even hinted at that she did some prostitution as well. But they've taken her in and sort of turned her life around. and and she shows Rosemary a little, like a silver charm or necklace, a little ball, and it has some supposed to be a good luck charm. She was told she was given by the Castevets, and she but it's filled with some sort of noxious smelling herbs that but she says she gets used to it. So they go along with their lives for a little while, and well, Guy and Rosemary are coming back from a night out. um, there's police around, and Terry is dead on the street. She had fallen, pushed, or jumped out of the window from the seventh floor, because they live on the seventh floor. And Rosemary's quite devastated by this, and the Castevets come along and identify the body, and then they did say that they spoke a little bit. That was the first meeting between Rosemary, Guy, and the Castevets. Was outside on the street, and she mentioned how Terry thought highly of the old couple and thanked them so much for taking her in. And the next day or two, Rosemary gets a knock on the door while Guy is out auditioning or acting, and uh, it's Millie, I think it is. Yes, Castevet comes to the door and thanks her for the kind words and everything, and eventually sort of insinuates herself in and is very nosy, asking everything about the furniture, even prices, and then invites them, both her and her husband Guy, to dinner. And she doesn't really want to, but the old lady is quite overbearing, and she agrees to, if and so she speaks to her husband when he gets home. They don't really want to, but they go anyway, and they find it quite amusing, this old couple, but uh, Guy is sort of enthralled by the stories that Roman Castevets talks about, because he says his father, and he's traveled the world and knows a lot of theatrical stuff, and he sort of talks highly of seeing Guy in a play, and and says that you're gonna do well. So they get talking, and then despite Guy's initial reaction, they didn't want to get caught up with an old couple. He continually goes over there, and he becomes very friendly with them. Rosemary is still a bit hesitant. She doesn't like the intrusions, but she eventually gets given that lucky charm that was Terry's. The Castevets give it to her, and then so she's got that charm now, and it's got that awful smelling root, and she's told that it's called tannis root. So, and all this time, Rosemary and Guy, well, Rosemary wants a baby, and that was one of the reasons why they got a bigger apartment. One of the rooms will be a nursery, and they start working on all that, and working on having a baby. And she was ready to do it by subterfuge, even if Guy didn't quite want a baby yet. But then all of a sudden he changes and wants a baby. So they do this, like, they're continually back and forth between, or Guy is between the Castevets flat, and they can hear them in the back, because the whole floor would have been a big apartment at one time, and it's a thin partition, and they can hear them and hear their parties and so forth through the partition. And Guy, comes, like they're having a meal. They're gonna sort of do a baby night. Have a romantic evening and try to conceive a baby. Rosemary drinks a bunch of wine, and then they at the door is Mrs. Castevets, and she's got like a pudding for them. And Rosemary doesn't really like the taste of it. She said there's an undertaste, but she eats a little bit of it. She gets really, really, really dizzy and basically passes out. Guy takes her to bed. And she has this dream, or she thinks it's a dream, that she's being conveyed somewhere, and she starts seeing the Pope, John F. Kennedy, all these things that are happening at the time, because the Pope at that time was coming to New York City. So this is on her mind, and she sees this, and then she's she thinks it's Guy that's having sex with her, but then she sort of realizes this is not Guy, and it's not a dream. It's real, sort of, because she didn't eat all the uh, the pudding, so she didn't have the drug. It was drugged. That was the idea, and then she saw that through the dream and through the text. So at least that's what she sees it in her mind, and this is how it's sort of written through her mind. And then she wakes up in the morning with scratches all over, and he says, "Oh well, sorry about that. I've cut my fingernails and stuff." And she sort of feels betrayed, because she feels like he's had her way with her while she was unconscious, and that's what he's saying. And then she becomes pregnant, and the Castevets sort of send her to a friend, a obstetrician that's well known, and so she starts going there, but she's getting lots of pain for month after month after month, from about November to January. It's just constant pain, pelvic pain, and they're saying it's okay. And the Castevets are giving her her herb drink, because the doctor doesn't believe in vitamins, like pill wise, and all this kind of stuff. And so during this time, after many months of pregnancy, she's looking very peaked and pale and lost weight. And her friend Hutch comes over and sort of says that she looks awful. And then, but he meets the Roman Castevets, and she talks about this root, Tanis root, and he doesn't know what it is, and he finds it a little strange. And then later, as sort of time goes on, they have a party for their own friends, and it's New Year's, Christmas over New Year's time, and but she's still in a lot of pain, and she gets a call. She makes an arrangement to meet Hutch in the morning, but then he doesn't show up, and she doesn't know why. But then she finds out that he had went into a coma late the night before, and he's still in a coma. And a friend of his, is keeping her updated. Eventually, the pain disappears, and she's feeling better. And then Hutch dies in the coma. Well, he did wake up a little bit, and he did say he wanted her to have a book. And the book is a book that was written in 1933. It's called "They Are All Witches." And it's talking about a witch that the Mercado that lived there, that supposedly summoned Satan, and was killed either outside or near the building. By a crowd. But he has a son called Stephen, and the message that came to her was that, the name's an anagram. So she tries with they're all witches. She can't figure out what that is, and then she's flipping through the book, and she sees the name Stephen Mercado underlined. So she starts that, and it comes out Roman Castevets. So she's convinced now that he's Stephen Mercado, and that they're all witches. And they want the baby because she reads in there that they use baby's blood and all this kind of stuff in the flesh. So she's very scared about this. And time goes on a little more. She's still Guy doesn't sort of believe her or anything. They think she's hysterical. She goes to the doctor, but then she finally sort of decide that she's had enough. She's afraid for the baby. The baby's going to be born shortly. So she goes to the doctor, her obstetrician, but then she finds out that through this, the stench that she used to have around this charm, that the secretary or the nurse says, he has something like that. And then so she realizes that he's part of this, so she flees. She goes to her original doctor, who appears to help her, but then calls her husband and the older doctor, the doctor that she's had. So they take her away. She gives birth to the baby. They tell her it's stillborn, but she hears a baby, and she's being sort of drugged, but she sort of gets away from it. She sort of breaks in through there's an entrance way through the closets, to the Castavet's apartment, and she finds the baby there, and they're all around and everything, and they've called the baby Adrian, and she looks and says, well, what's happened with its eyes? Well, it's got its father's eyes, and the father is Satan. And all of a sudden, it all comes back that she was raped by Satan, and she's gonna have, and she gave birth to the son of Satan. And that's basically where it ends, where she sort of accepts the fact that, well, she can't do anything, so she accepts the fact of raising the baby as her own, but she wants to change the name to Andrew. She'd had the name Andrew in mind if it was a male child. So that's sort of where the book ends, and the film is very, very close to it. Roman Polanski directed the film. It starred Mia Farrow as Rosemary, John Cassavetes as Guy. Um, um, I forget the names here now. Sorry, Ruth Gordon as the Millie Castavets, and Sidney Blackmer as Roman Castavets. Maurice Evans plays Hutch, the friend, and Ralph Bellamy is the doctor, the sort of evil obstetrician. And it was produced by William Castle. William Castle was a raconteur during the 50s with a lot of sort of schlocky horror, like some really bad stuff, but they're fun. He did some fun stuff, but this is sort of his best sort of produced film. I think, anyway, that I've seen. There's some that are rather good. The House on Haunted Hill, I think it is, and The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price in each of those. But he did dozens of others, a whole bunch of stuff. And Roman Polanski got the not the draft, but the proof copies. I guess proof of the book, and he liked it and he wanted to go ahead and do it. So they did it for Paramount Pictures, and he didn't have Rosemary as Mia Farrow as Rosemary. He wanted somebody else. Now he originally thought Tuesday Weld, more sort of an international star than Mia Farrow, because Mia Farrow at that point was only known really from television, from Peyton Place, the series, the soap opera series. And she's the daughter of Maureen O'Sullivan, which was a 1930s actress. She was in the Thin Man, first Thin Man movie, and the Tarzan films, playing Jane with Johnny Weissmuller, at least, and many other things. But she's daughter and the daughter of an Australian director. Forget his name, Farrow. I don't off the top of my head know anything, any films that he directed. So he wanted that, and even apparently somewhere along the way, Joan Fonda was considered for the role. She was at the same time doing Barbarella, but I don't know if she would have worked. Maybe Tuesday Weld, yeah, but Jane Fonda, no, I don't think she would have worked as the character. John Cassavetes, I never cared for him as an actor. He's a method actor, and there's times in the film it's pretty poor acting. And just go through the other actors, like Ruth Gordon playing Millie Castavets. I think she's a fabulous actor. Not quite the character that's in the book, but she's a fabulous actress. She did a lot of stuff. Her best, probably one of the best known ones, is oh, so it's a Maud. I can't remember now, but she's like have like an 18-year old young man sort of falls in love with her, and they go traveling. I forget, something in Maud is the name of the title. Just off the top of my head, I can't remember. But she's a veteran actress. Sidney Blackmer as Roman. Roman Castevetz was really good. Like, he had this charming, evil presence about him, and he was just a saltward actor. He started out, I think, in some silence, dozens of films in the 30s and 40s, and even into the 50s. Usually, character actor or supporting roles, but he did dozens of films. And a very good actor. And Maurice Evans, again, a big actor that's went through the like a lot of the 30s and 40s and a lot of films. And actually, just the year before, the same year, pretty well, he was in Planet of the Apes. He played Dr. Zaius, obviously with the makeup. And Ralph Bellamy as Dr. Saperstein. Ralph Bellamy, a great actor again too, from the 30s and 40s. Very distinctive voice, and I always remember him in His Girl Friday with Rosalind Russell and Cary Grant. Rosalind Russell is engaged to him, and she's going to see Cary, who's the editor, and he tells somebody, get rid of the guy or do something to him. He's downstairs, and he goes, "Well, what does he look like?" "Oh, he looks like that actor, Ralph Bellamy. That's who he looks like." And it was Ralph Bellamy. So I thought that was a really good scene. But anyway, up at this point, Roman Polanski had really only directed one film. I think this, or at least not, no, that's not true. His first English film, like Hollywood film, is this one for Paramount. Prior to that, he did which could have been the second film. I didn't actually look at his filmography, but Fierce Vampire Killers was his first film, and that's romp if you ever get to see that. But yeah, no, and it's like usual things like books. I had a few issues with the book. It's very short, and Ira Levin, he he sort of strings you along a little bit, that you think it could be in her head, all this kind of stuff, and but she gets the book, and all of a sudden she's too quickly, I think, figures things out. Like, I know things do fall into place, but it's like, I wished if it was another 150 pages long, at the very least, you could have drawn out a little more and made it look more for the readers, like, well, is she really you know making this up in her own mind or not? And she's very sort of subservient at times in here, but then has her own strengths, especially at the end of the book, where she insists that it's going to be that she doesn't want the child to be named Adrian, because that's Roman's father's name, and she doesn't want that, and she sort of takes control as being a mother. So she has strength, but she's quite subservient at the time. And there's so many things that are real, like with the actress and stuff like that, naming the actress, and events that are happening that happen the way they do in real life. So there's a lot of crossover with the real life, with the Pope coming to New York City. But it's always, it's sort of from her whole point of view. And it's like, and then at the end, I thought she accepted too quickly to take over the mother, knowing that it's Satan's child. Or is it? Because, like, people have read this book of saying that, it still is all within her mind. And I don't quite see how you could do that, like the way it's written, because it's too short, as I say. If it was strung out a little longer and a little more details and stuff, and slowly she's piecing this stuff together, and then all of a sudden, it just drops everything. Everything comes to fruition. It works. It would work better. But in the film, it works a little better in the film. Like, if things move on very quickly. But I've mentioned before where film it telescopes time, and you have to do these things with film, because sometimes it would make it too long and too ponderous sometimes. Also, too, it's like a good director will enhance things because he enhances so much stuff that's in the book. And he leaves out some stuff too, and because there's always things that they work in print that can't really work in pictures, and then vice versa. But one thing that he does is like he increases the idea of the conspiracy and stuff like that. And it was during the time of the '60s. There's lots of conspiracy. The JFK thing, who shot JFK, and all this kind of stuff, and even witches were. Becoming a little more prominent. So all these things that are happening, there's the dichotomy between the old world and the new, an old generation to the new, and that was done through films as well. Things were changing in the '60s for filmmaking, as well as he encompasses all this by having the old school actors. I don't really care for that term, but old school actors uh, being most of the part, and then have Guy and Rosemary are the young ones meeting this in the place, and it's sort of the layers like that. And also too, there's an interesting thing of food throughout it. It's like every time, like when they're at Hutch's place and they're gonna have a roast lamb dinner, and he's carving up the dinner, and he's telling them about these two old lady sisters, Victorian sisters, that would kill, cook, and eat children, babies, and even their niece, and all this kind of stuff. And every time food is brought in, it's always done in a disgusting way. Like she's eating, raw chicken liver, and she takes a steak and cuts a bit of it off and just throws it in the frying pan, turns it over, and then sits there and eats it. It's almost like a revolting thing. Every time food is brought up, it's revolting, and it's a theme throughout. And instead of, it was one thing that was kind of interesting, instead of uh, the actress that in the book she was referred to Italian actress. This time Terry is referred to as looking at like an actress called Victoria Vetri. That is the actress that's playing Terry, her real name, but she used a pseudonym for Angela Dorian for the film. And it's just a lot of interesting stuff like that, and how he goes through. There's so much more to talk about because it's so rich in the imagery and the Catholicism and the idea of witchcraft. Like God is dead. Like she picks up a Time magazine that says, "Is God dead?" And they treat sort of in some ways. The witchcraft is somewhat evil, but not quite so evil at times either, because it's sort of like she becomes Mary, like Mary as the son, with the son Jesus. So she's got her own, like she's Mary, and this son is going to be the son of Satan. So it's a parallel with that, and there's a lot of Catholic guilt throughout it because the character is Catholic, and even if you extend it more, Mia Farrow was brought up Catholic, and all this kind of stuff. And in this interesting book, the BFI Guide, written by Michael Newton, he goes into some of the psychology of that, how you look at things that, the viewer looks at the rape scene as, revolting, but in your mind, you say, oh, well, it's just actors, it's not real. And then it's sort of like he does that in the film as well, because like Rosemary thinks this is not real, so she thinks it's a dream. She thinks she's dreaming, and then all of a sudden the realization it's not a dream, and that's sort of jarring for the viewer, as I say. But the viewer knows that it's actors acting in something that's not real. So it's an interesting psychological layering that can be done with films, and I've noticed that's done. And I don't know if I fully believe all that, but it's an interesting thing to look at, the different layers. And there's a thing, yeah. Just I'll sort of end up on what's called, which I didn't know anything about, but it's in here. It's called Oh, just one last thing about the film. There was censorship, and there was like in England here, they had to cut out about 15 seconds of in the dream that she's having before she's being raped, but they tie her legs apart, and they had to take that scene out. Apparently, that was too much for the censors here in the UK. The rape is okay, but you can't have her legs being tied down, which is it's very odd. But and then there's the so-called curse. Now, as I was saying, the Hutch character died in a coma in the book. Now you got William Castle fell ill to uremic poisoning at first of all, and then Komeda, who was the I think he did the music. He fell seriously. Well, he was knocked down. He fell seriously ill. He went into a coma and died. Okay, there you go. And then later, obviously, Castle recovered on the 8th of August 1969. Came, the attack of the Manson family on Polanski's home and killing, everyone there. Sharon Tate and their unborn child, and and then it goes on to say that one of the Susan Atkins, who were part of the Manson family, had been a topless dancer for a Church of Satan performance titled "Topless Witches Review." And then Dear Prudence from the Beatles' White Album, oh, I thought it was a different album, but it's from the White Album, was written for Mia Farrow's sister. And that record ended up influencing, perhaps even directing Charles Manson in his killing spree. And then in 1980, the John Lennon was shot outside of the building that was used in the film. It's the Dakota building, a gothic huge pile basically, and he was shot outside of the building. And the other thing that's interesting, well, coincidences, but it's an interesting thing, and it's called The Curse of Rosemary's Baby. But also too, the other thing I wanted to say was that he called it Bramford, and it was there's no such building as that, and obviously they chose whether he had the Dakota building in mind when he described everything. He possibly did, but I haven't come across that in any of the reading that I did. But anyway, he called it Bramford after Bram Stoker. He did it as a nod towards Bram Stoker, the Bramford, the building, and so I thought that was kind of interesting. And yeah, I thought it was a wonderful film. I thought it was a wonderful adaptation. And as I say, there's so much imagery, the Catholic imagery, and the Catholic guilt that's in there. It just imbues the whole film and everything. It's just there's times where it's let down a little bit with acting, like John Cassavetes' acting is just let down. Even though Roman Polanski thought he was a great actor, I don't think so. But they changed the ending a little bit. He wanted to be very ambiguous. He wanted to, because it's all filmed almost from her point of view. Everything that happens is like she's in the scene and things that are happening there. So he wanted to be ambiguous, like whether or not it was real or not. And he says that's how he ended it. But I don't think it's ambiguous, the ending. To me, it's pretty clear, unless you're thinking that she's still hallucinating everything that she sees there. Well, everybody started screaming hail Satan, and then she's looking at the baby, but she doesn't insist the baby's name change in the film, nor does she has a flash of grabbing the baby and jumping out the window and killing them both. She had this flash in the book, but that was taken out. You see, again, things like that, because it fits better with the image of the director. And that's the great thing of directing, because they're as I say, they enhance things that are already there, and then they put some things in the background, and for good or bad sometimes. And but really, when it's a good director, it works. It all meshes together. But anyway, there's Rosemary's Baby. That's the first one this week, and I do apologize for not being around doing these for a while. Next week, I was going to do The Exorcist, but there's an issue with the copy that I was going to read, so I have to wait. But I'm going to do The Haunting next week. That's the film, Robert Wise film, and then it's from Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, and this is a Penguin book. This is, I think it's got the series cover on that. It was very cheap, so don't like all this, but it's just a nice cover. But that's kind of annoying, that little thing, Netflix thing there. But anyway, that'll be next week. Fingers crossed, how I feel, and I hope everybody's doing well. Take care and happy Halloweenish.